Welcome back to the Your Town television program. I'm Mark Baer, your host on every third Tuesday. My guest for this last segment is the great Bryant Austin.
Hi, Mark.
It's been, for you who don't know, Bryant's photographs of whales have been up at the Museum of Monterey for the last, 6 months?
5 months.
5 months.
Yep.
It's been a thrill living with them. I get deeper into it as I live with it. Knowing you has been a great experience. But what we didn't have when last time I interviewed you on this program was your book. And I'm going to have you hold up your book.
Oh, sure.
And we'll put the the camera on it.
Okay.
There we go.
Is that
and
good?
Yeah, there we go. That's fabulous.
I'm so grateful.
So you've been having the experience of the book tour. I've heard you on NPR. I've seen you in the Wall Street Journal. You've been around.
It's been a little surreal. You know, you spend 10 years doing this work and just quietly doing it, and then this has been the year of sharing, especially back home. So it's been really rewarding.
So
Yeah.
You're a media guy now that you
Yes.
never.
Honestly, I just want to create photographs of whales, really compelling photographs, put them on a wall, and get out of the way. And the exact opposite has happened.
Yeah, you've honed your media chops in the last.
I guess so. Yeah, I'm a very shy person. It was difficult even to do this a couple of years ago. I couldn't even come in here. I mean, it's been a crazy journey.
Well, for those who might not know the word, let's start this interview with some of the photographs. First of all, this is your book.
Oh yeah, there you go.
And
That's a photo that I just released this year. It's a 7-year-old photograph, but it's in the book and it's just received a lot of attention. That's a mother whale resting vertically with her tail in the water for 20 minutes, slowly rotating 360 degrees. And I think she was listening for males singing up to 15 miles away.
And how long she's doing this for how long?
Up to 20 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah. And the photograph is entitled "A Mother Listens." That's one of my favorite whales. His name is Scar. He's a 14-year-old sperm whale in that photograph. It's a detailed photo of a much larger photo I think you'll see coming up. That is a part of a photograph that measures 10 by 36 feet. And unfortunately, it's not on display yet. It hasn't been printed and mounted yet. It'll weigh 1,200 pounds when it's completed.
Wow.
That's the full photograph right there.
Wow.
And so it's a challenge. We're trying to figure out the best way to print and mount it.
Is this on glass as well?
Yeah, it'll be face mounted to plexi. There are other processes to create the same effect that I'm exploring that are even higher standards, higher quality, more archival. And it just needs a place to live. It will be an original photograph. All digital files that were used to create it will be destroyed. And I just want to create the same feeling I had in that moment. It was such a fleeting, precious moment.
Okay, let's just hold on this for a second. Okay, well here, let's hold on this for just
sure.
1 second.
Sure.
Okay, let's talk about a little bit about, now you're not much farther than me when you're in the water. Yeah. So again, Bryant's not 200 feet away on the boat, and the whale pops up and he's taking the picture. You're intimately there months and months and months at a time with these whales, knowing them intimately, very close, they can touch you. The insanity and the magic and the mystery of this experience is astounding. Yeah. So let's go a little bit about your working process with this.
Yeah, I mean, you saw that photograph earlier, the 10 by 36 photo. That's made up of 20 photographs. I composed mosaics from 5 feet away from the subject, and I'm only photographing them in 5-foot wide sections, probably from 6 feet away or closer. And it's entirely on his terms. It's always on their terms. It can only be done safely that way. They come to me. They stay as long as they want, and when they're done, they leave.
So let's just talk about a photo session. So you're close, and again, you've got this weird object, this camera in their face.
Yeah.
Now, are you like clicking, or are you like clicking and then letting it settle and clicking, or how's this working?
When they approach me, when they come in for a close inspection, I'll start clicking the camera so they hear it. They're familiar with it already, so it's not a surprise or a shock to them. And really, there's very little time to waste with a lot of the whales. Some will only come by me once, and that would be a 20-second encounter. So you have to click very fast, make sure every photo is technically spot on. You're collecting raw information. It's raw data that's pumped into Photoshop, and then the art is back home, on a computer screen. Where I'll spend 300 hours creating these seamless mosaics.
Okay. And you were called to this mission. You were in this job. You were doing things, and you got a calling. And kind of talk about that experience.
Yeah, in 1994, I fulfilled my childhood dream to just swim with a whale, and this was in the Azores in the Atlantic. And I had lost 2 dear friends that year, one to cancer, one in an accident, and it really lit a fire under me to just really take a look within and figure out what's really important to me. And I didn't have the answers, but I thought, I've always wanted to swim with a whale. I love whales, want to help them. And went to the Azores, swam with sperm whales, had a mother swim right by me. She was probably 10 feet away, still incredible. Took pictures, very excited, got the pictures and thought, this doesn't recreate the sensation I experienced. And in fact, none of the photography I'd seen of whales underwater recreated that sensation. And I wanted to know if it was possible. And I spent another 10 years on this journey exploring this idea of, can you photographically create something that's so compelling it would reach people who have no interest in whales or their plight, who have had no reason to be moved by them. And that all changed in 2004. The story I shared here earlier this year.
And again, you don't have a political statement. You don't have a overtly.
No, not really.
Or even an environmental statement or anything. It's a spiritual statement, if anything.
Well,
it's all those other things, but it's.
I've been an activist, whale conservation activist, and I've done a lot of conservation work and still do on a very small scale. And it's all very important, but it wasn't my calling, and some of the activism that I've done, you're doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And instead the same thing happens over and over. It's been going on for 40 years, and I really wanted to know, what could I do differently? What can I offer that isn't necessarily activism? And it led to this work, just making whales visible on their scale and on their terms, and that's reflected in the eye.
And again, there is artistry involved. Let's see one more picture.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's at the Museum of Monterey. That was my largest photograph up until about 2 years ago. That measures 6 by 30 feet. That's of a whale named Ella. She's a dwarf minke whale, and I've spent more time with her than any other whale. Up to probably I would say 18 hours I've spent with her, up to 6 hours a day. And she really allowed me to experiment and try new things and take more risks. Because when we mentioned earlier, when a whale comes up to me, it may be only a 20-second encounter, and there's not a lot of room for risk. You just get the photos, do the best you can. But with Ella, she would be closer than you and I are right now, and allow me just to explore the aesthetics, and to really pay attention to her eye. She's rolling up and looking at me, and I can see her eye underneath the surface of the ocean, and I can start to compose photos of her eye here and then reflecting in the surface, and really play with the light and reflection and the qualities of the atmospheric and sea states, really go into it.
Is there another?
There might be. I don't know. That may be all of them.
Oh, nope, that's me.
That's
it. So, do you know when you've got the shot?
I don't, because these are very, again, it's raw information, and they're highly the technical quality, I'm not sure, they're just technically superior. Like, I won't know that until I examine them. And what I mean is incredibly sharp. They have to be incredibly sharp. I'm using a 50 megapixel sensor, 80 millimeter portrait lens, and you're doing your best to get everything in focus. And you never know if it's in focus. It's a studio camera, it's a Hasselblad, and they have one autofocus point. So I have 80% of my photographs aren't sharp enough. So that's work. Those are moments lost.
Mm-hmm. and you're looking. There's patterns. There's light reflection. I mean, this is. It seems simple. It's complex.
Yeah, it's simple to me now, but obviously it's a steep learning curve to do this work, and really what the main thing about this learning curve is me slowly waking up to the reality of just how close you have to be to a whale to take these photographs, to make life-size photographs. And I've been in denial half of this process because I don't want to be that close. There is risk involved. It's overwhelming. It's very hard to get used to a well 6 feet away, a well that's the size of a school bus, and it's very difficult to get used to that. Your heart is pounding sometimes, and I'm sure they can hear it. You hear it. I mean, it's unreal.
Yeah, and they can flick you.
If they wanted to.
Yeah.
And they could do it accidentally, and they don't. And I'm incredibly grateful. And I do my best to be as safe as possible with them.
So again, just to reiterate for the audience that they might not know, is that you're seeking out the same whales, you're making the same sounds as you approach them, you're getting to know this isn't, you're just not jumping into the sea and finding the random whale. So,
right.
How does this courtship begin?
Yeah, you can do that. Now, often that's what we've had to do in the past because we can't invest that much time. It's expensive to work in their world. I mean, that is my studio, their environment. And so if in the beginning I would invest 3 months with a specific group of whales, and just wait for an exceptional individual just to come up to me and make a photograph. And that happened a couple of times. But then I thought, what happens if I wear the same thing every day, a high contrast wetsuit, and I have the same boat with the same acoustic signature? And then what happens if I'm very predictable and respectful in my behavior? I'm slow when I move, and I'm motionless most of the time, and I'm at a great distance from them. But I'm seeing them every day or every week. And so I'm curious, if a pattern forms in their mind, okay, wait, I remember this person. We see birds every day, but does anyone remember the last bird we saw? They have the capacity to remember you as an individual. It's just, are we willing to make that investment in time? And that's something we've never done before, and it's really exciting to see what happens.
And you felt that you crossed that barrier then?
I have to some extent. The most I've ever spent with one well is 5 days, and like this was Ella, and that was up to 6 hours a day. It's still an unknown, it's still a lot to learn.
I mean, are you the pioneer here? Is there someone doing this work, or you're the dude?
No, I'm standing on the shoulders of some great, amazing individuals. Flip Nicklin is a National Geographic photographer, one of my heroes, and he's the reason I'm doing this work. And I like to think I'm just continuing that tradition and bringing something back special in the same way he did in his entire career. Yeah. But as far as I know, I'm the only person in the world making life-size photographs of whales, and I understand why. It's highly experimental, highly risky in terms financially. The last time I was in the field for 5 weeks, which is short for me, but you spend about $25,000 to do that, and I came back with nothing. And you have to be willing to come back with nothing because these encounters are entirely on the whale's terms. I don't swim up to them. They have to come to me. And you have to be willing to take that risk. And no one ever has been willing to take that risk, and that's why you never see these photographs. So.
How does, I feel now I have to pay for the next trip. How does someone purchase a piece of your art? How does these are beautiful pieces of art. How does someone own a piece of this art?
Well, I've released a small body of work that funds field work and takes care of myself, and they can contact me directly through my website. If they're on the East Coast, the Focus Gallery and Chatham, Massachusetts represents my work over there. They can see it in person at their gallery. And my work has been commissioned. All of my largest photographs have been commissioned, and that's something I'm pursuing now with the blue whale.
So let's go blue. What's next?
Well, there are 3 things I'm working on. The blue whale, it's the largest creature ever to exist on Earth, and yet we've never seen them. We've seen them when they wash up dead on our beaches. We've seen their skeletons. We've seen them when they're draped on a bulbous bow of a container ship coming into our port where they were struck and killed. But we've never seen them really. And the photographs we have of them, they're just fleeting glimpses. If they're footage, if their photographs are just blobs of color in the shape of a blue whale. We have better photographs of Mars than we do of the largest creature ever to exist on Earth. And that's something I want to fix. And most importantly, I'm really curious to see how we respond to that. I mean, imagine walking along the length of a 90-foot wide photograph, 12 feet high, and to come eye to eye with the whale. And this is a photograph that'll be in near macro level detail. I'll use 5 cameras at once to photograph this whale, cameras stacked vertically, if you can imagine that, with probably 80 millimeter lenses, maybe 100 millimeter lenses, so high detail.
Wow.
As close to reality as possible.
Wow.
So.
the scale, I mean, how close will you be?
They will be photographed remotely. I won't be in the water. It'll be a surgical effort. They're very difficult to be in the water with them, to photograph them that way. It's something I may actually do that. I will try it, but I feel I'll have greater success through a different method I'm working on that unfortunately I can't share with you yet.
Okay. Well, our clock is winding around. So first of all, how's the success of the book going?
It's going really well. It's been an incredibly heartwarming experience. You know, I've mostly shared my work in countries that commercially hunt whales, and I'm now sharing my work in my own country, which is something I've never really done before. And it's just been an incredible response, and I'm very grateful.
And let's talk about Saturday. This Saturday is the book signing?
Oh yes, at the Museum of Monterey. I'll give another presentation and add some new content to it and sign books from 2 to 4 o'clock.
So everybody, 2 to 4 o'clock, Museum of Monterey, get your book. It'll be signed. They're gorgeous. And see the show because it's going to end at the end of the summer.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I hate to see the curtain come down. But all these things do end.
Yes.
And then, so that's the blue whale. And then what else? We just have a few more minutes. I want to make sure that...
well, the other, you know, whaling is a major issue. It gets a lot of our attention and a lot of our rage and frustration, but it's really only 1% of what's killing whales. The main issue is entanglement in commercial fishing gear. More than 300,000 whales, dolphins, and porpoises die in fishing gear for the seafood we rely on and love, enjoy to eat. And I want to make this a visual reality. I want us to see, you know, instead of just, anyway, I hear the music.
we all hear the music. My guest, Bryant Austin, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark.